Welcome to the Sherman Report. Here's Peter Sherman. Well, a happy Monday to you. I hope the week has started off well. I am joined today by Andy Stinton. We discuss whether the public may have been better informed before the days of social media and cable news entered our lives. You think? Perhaps fewer sources, non-paid sources, did make life simpler. We'll talk about it, and a few more current topics to boot. Example, where are the flying cars? We were told we would have flying cars. And I think there are prototypes. I've seen some pictures, but I have yet to see a flying car parked on the street or flying in the sky. And I'm a pilot. I'd notice. What's a Dejero? D-E-J-E-R-O. What's a Dejero? Seems it pertains to camera conversion of video from a camera to clip form for television. Apparently to blame for the famous Polyev splice. We'll find out. Reaction to the death of Hassan Nasrallah, nominal head of Hezbollah, by the Israelis. Joy in the streets of Lebanon, joy in the streets of Iran, and joy in the streets of Toronto. What do you know? Don't mess with Israel. The Houthis found that out the hard way early this weekend. Netanyahu reaches out to Iranians directly, most of whom could happily do without their mullahs. And should Prime Minister Justin Trudeau be spending another $16 billion to attend to old age security for people ages 65 through 74? It's what the BLOC wants. We'll see. That and more coming your way on today's Sherman Report. Back with Andy in one moment. You're with the Sherman Report. Daily news commentary live at 5 p.m. Video version live at X, YouTube, and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman. Andy Stinton, what can you say? It's that time again. We pay a visit to beautiful Costa Rica, land of sun and great internet connectivity. And we meet Andy Stinton out in his yard. And there he is. I'm still jonesing for a place like that. But this isn't the time, Andy. How do you do it?
Well, first, the way you introduce me, it sounds like I'm going to do gardening tips. Okay. Now, if you want to, do you know how much the cost of a palm tree is? A 4-meter palm tree. No, it's not that much. A 4-meter palm tree is only $100.
That's there. Go try doing it in Florida.
Okay, fine.
And there are a lot of folks in Florida having to replace palm trees at $2,000, $3,000 a piece.
Is that how much they cost there?
Because they bring you big ones and they have that funny scoop that goes like that. I guess I can get, like that. And it holds the palm tree and goes and lowers it into the earth. And then they plow it. That's it.
Well, I think that people who tune into your program, which is a growing number every day, are now thankful that the two of us have discussed the price of palm trees, something I never thought I'd be doing.
Well, we did that. So let's jump into something real. I put some things on the list. You put some things on the list. And one of the things you put on, I think is a really great topic because you could talk this one to death. We won't. Are we better informed or worse informed news-wise than we were before there was cable news and before there was social media? And since you asked the question, I'll start. I'm just going to make it short and let you elaborate. I think the answer is no. I think we were better informed before. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but you go ahead.
I think we're better informed.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because we're having a discussion, so that wouldn't make sense. It's just more work now. We can now find out the truth. That's not that difficult. There's companies like NewsGuard, Snopes. There's all these fact-checking places where you can actually check the media, whoever they may be.
You can fact-check. Yeah, you can fact-check.
However, you have to take the time to say, Peter Sherman raises palm trees, and then you have to go check on the internet. You have to do your own investigative reporting to come up with the truth. So, yes, we can have more truth. We can. But
we don't. We don't.
I do. I have reports that come up in my my inbox that are fact-checking things.
Well, I have some of those too, and it's nice to know that there are fact-checking sites. But it was equally nice to know that there were people pre-cable. You had the Walter Cronkite image, and you knew that Walter Cronkite came from a seasoned reporting background before he was ever on television, and that he wouldn't sit and tell you something at his desk unless he personally knew that the facts had been checked, so you could trust him. America's most trusted news anchor. And that's before you had all kinds of people who were basically pretty girls and pretty boys sitting on cable news networks. I'm not saying they're all wrong. I'm saying that I have to do the checking. And the same thing is true of things that are in print. Now, in print today means on my screen. So I can decide whether I want to look at Truth Social, whether I want to look at Parler, whether I want to look at obviously X, but there are so many others. TikTok, you and I were fooling around with something from TikTok a moment ago, but we're not putting it on the air. The bottom line is there are things that you can look at that are absolutely bullshit. They're purposeless unless they're to make people laugh. And you, in your brilliance, and all of those people out there, the great unwashed, as we sometimes like to call them, they have to look in their brilliance and figure out what's true and what's not. When I used to read the paper, growing up, I had two papers in my city. I had the Montreal Gazette and the Montreal Star. And if I wanted to spend the money, I could buy the New York Times on the weekend. And between the three of them, it was likely that I'd get a pretty good full-scale scape of what's going on out there.
Here's what's happening now. My neighbor, who's an interesting guy, and he's a Fox News kind of guy, and he said something to me the other day that was so outlandish, and I can't remember what it was, but it was outlandish. And I said, well, that's not true. I mean, it's patently not true. And I couldn't figure out, because he's an intelligent man. He runs a big company. And I happened to be watching, I think it was Fox News or one of them the other day, and word for word, he had taken a piece of propaganda put forward by one side or the other and repeated that as the truth. And it was so far from the truth.
Well, now you just hit on something, though. You've just hit on the big problem. It isn't so much that the cable news networks don't tell the truth. I think by and large, they tell a lot of truth. There's a lot of editorial spin on there, but the basic facts that you're given before they spin are reasonably factual. And I've checked them against other things, as have you. The problem is that whatever you hear, whether it's fact and editorial mixed or not, and generally it is what Joe Blow out there comes and tells you is true. And that's where we all get screwed up.
A friend of mine asked me that. I notice I'm referring to a lot of mysterious friends, which is a classic news thing. A source said, they said,
unnamed sources,
somebody close to the prime minister said, he's a cleaning lady, and they said to me, how can you tell the difference? Really easy. I go online and I watch the clip that Trump or Harris or Pierre or Justin said. I watch with my own eyes. Then I can make my own decision. It's really complicated, but there's so many idiots out there. I worry about society because of the number of idiots out there.
Well, I mean, that's like you're all idiots. Everybody is watching. No, you're not. Most of you who are watching are actually paying attention to two characters, such as we may be, telling you what we think of things that you're probably considering as well. Hopefully we give you some thought starters and away you go. We're not presenting news. But, it's funny that you say what Pierre says or what Justin says. You're sitting in Costa Rica. I know you keep up with Canadian news, so you'd be aware that there was a electronic splice problem last week that involved Pierre Poilievre. You're aware of that?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the 10-second version.
How do I know you're a reliable news source?
Well, CTV took a piece of tape, and CTV took another piece of tape, and electronically put them together as they do.
Yes, I do know about this. Yes.
Okay, and Pierre hollered, and his people hollered, and there was a lawsuit threatened, and CTV apologized, and I think the thing is out of the way. But here's the thing: I'm just going to read you something because I think you'll know what it means, and I don't. Poilievre ended up being quoted thus: "That's why we need to put forward a motion," which is not what he said. He said, "That's why it's time to put forward a motion for a carbon tax election." The next day, the network apologized unreservedly, their word, for the mistake, blaming it on a misunderstanding in the editing process, and the problem seemed to have been in the transfer using a Dejero. a piece of equipment that moves video from camera to clips. And I figure, you being in the business, do you know what a Dejero is?
Yes, I do.
I was worried you might not. So I found out what it
Bullshit.
was.
It's
I
bullshit.
looked it up.
At the end of a day, you can do stuff with AI. I mean, you can tell AI, make this, make that. But at the end of the day, there's a talented human being there saying, this is the end of one thought. I need to continue this with this thought. I'll splice them together. It hasn't changed from the audio days, or it hasn't changed from anything. So if somebody did that, they did it knowingly and meaningly. However,
I don't think so.
on the positive,
I don't think
you
so.
think it was a mistake?
Well, here's what I think happened. I looked up Dejero. Dejero is apparently a fairly expensive and fancy box that uses multiple cellular lines to break down the video because it's too wideband to send on one line. And it sends it from where you are to a studio. And I guess in sending two pieces of tape, it lost some digits because it's all digital. And these two things got put together probably by some poor schmuck back at the studio. You say no?
No, we use those packs. That's another name for them. We use those packs, and they're just cell packs. I mean, they're complicated cell packs. If you lose something, it can cut off your signal totally, but it's unlikely to do. It usually digitizes.
In other words, it wouldn't put two things together by itself.
No.
Okay.
It puts signals together. It puts the actual signals. So when we're broadcasting, we do New Year's Eve fireworks. I need to get those signals out there. They're HD. So rather than use one cell card to send the signal back to base, I put in a Bell, a Rogers, a Telus.
So you're backing yourself up endlessly.
No. They glue them together to make one great big pipe. And then if one pipe runs a little low, right, it transfers more to the other pipe. It's just to keep a consistent pipe. It's got nothing to do with editing.
My God, I was going to say that's more information than we needed, but the bottom line here is that blaming it on the equipment is illogical. Okay, so we're going to leave it at that because I don't think they're going to be chasing this particular story anymore. Let's go to something equally wacko: flying cars. The flying cars never came along, at least they haven't yet. But for you, Alexa and Google did, and it would have been enough. You know, your house is doing as you tell it, but and it's changed your life. But you can't fly in your own flying car anywhere because they don't exist. But they do, you see.
I think we didn't get all the stuff that was promised. You know, when I grew up, there'd be flying cars. It would be like the Jetsons.
I was going to say, you watched the Jetsons too much, you old fart.
I did not watch the Jetsons. That was American. I was in Britain, but I am aware of the cultural phenomenon that was the Jetsons that influenced your life. There's a whole thesis on its own. But now we have better than that. We have so much. My house is totally connected. Every light bulb is capable of 16.5 million colors, and I bought that from Philips, or you can buy it off Amazon for $10, and I can say, turn on cinema, and all the lights go to a certain level. I can say, hey, Roomba, vacuum the front room, and it will do that. I can look down while I'm here in Costa Rica. Oh, there's a sound in your house. I can monitor the whole thing. I can tell it to turn my temperature up, turn my temperature down, make a cappuccino.
You didn't catch me when I broke in your house yesterday.
No, I just felt.
Score one for the guy stuck in Ontario. Anyway,
I think it's so exciting.
The bottom line,
the bottom line
here, Andy, has got to be: you didn't expect, and I didn't expect to even be halfway where we are, much less where they said we were going.
No, the ability, and I quite often think about this. I go back to the days of records, and then we had cassettes, and then we had CDs, and you'd say, "Oh, I'm going to listen to this CD." Now I can sit in my house and say, "Alexa, play me Taylor Swift's best hits, greatest hits," which is always a stupid title. What?
Just saying.
You don't like Taylor Swift?
I'm not a fan. Good luck to the woman. She's fabulous. Okay, I'm not a fan.
You're supposed to be a teenage girl going through angst.
Oh, stop. Barbara Streisand, the greatest voice that ever was. I'm not a fan. And what's her face from Quebec? I'm
What's her
losing it.
face from Quebec?
That's how up to date I am.
What's her face from Quebec? What, Kermit the Frog?
No, she lives in Las Vegas, and I'm having a senior's moment. But the bottom line is, you know who I
Celine
mean.
Dion.
Celine Dion. So I think she's spectacular, and I watched her movie and cried, but I'm not a fan.
I've kept up, I think, well, mainly because of the business I'm in, but I think I watch Glastonbury every year, and some of the performances of that this year were amongst the best. One of them with Coldplay was perhaps the greatest concert I'd ever seen on television, televised.
Well, there you go. Glastonbury is supposed to be phenomenal. I envy you that.
Well, you can watch it. It's on TV. And the other one was before that was Phil Collins. And then to show my age, I'm going to make you jealous now. I was at the recording of Neil Diamond at the Greek Theatre, Hot August Night.
You were at that recording?
Yep.
That would have been fun. You do make me jealous. I know people who went to see him at Expo 67, if you want to go back a ways. I think he must be 85 now.
Yeah, he's suffering from, I believe it's dementia. He had
Yeesh.
to call this tour off. They now have a musical honoring him, and the opening of it, he appeared in the box above and did Sweet Caroline. But while we're talking about that, have you noticed the amount of airplay teams people that are now all singing Sweet Caroline as team songs?
And have you noticed about this is really, everybody out there is going to equate to this. Everybody sings Sweet Caroline at some time or another, and they all sing da da da, which is supposed to be instrumental, but everybody sings the da da da.
And it wasn't there originally.
It wasn't there originally. Okay,
No.
Very quickly, a serious topic. BLOC Québécois, you may or may not know this, is trying to hold up Trudeau for two bills being passed before October 29th, or he withdraws his support. One of them is to extend a 10% increase to the old age supplement for people 65 to 74. They already did it for 75 and up in 2022. If Trudeau accedes to this and goes along, it's 16 billion more out of your pocket and mine. These people 65 to 74, they're working. Most of them, they shouldn't be doing this, I think. What do you think?
I don't know how I think, to be honest. I think that a party that doesn't pledge allegiance to supporting Canada shouldn't have any say in Canada, is my thought on it.
You're not going to win that one. You may
I'll
be right. You're not going to win it.
And, you know, it goes back to conversations we kind of, will he do it? Will he don't? But I mean, I once, who's Vic Fideli, right? I once did a radio thing with him, and I said to Vic, stop talking in billions. I have trouble understanding $100,000. So when you say it's $16.5 billion to me, I have no concept.
Doesn't mean anything.
That. You know,
if we filed $10 bills on top of each other, it'd reach the height of the CN Tower. What does that mean? I don't know. I wish a windstorm would come and take care of all the poor people in Toronto. The bottom line here is, if I'm Trudeau, and I would never be Trudeau, but if I'm Trudeau and this gets presented to me, I say, oh, screw it. I have to face an electorate at some point. I'm going to do it now and yank the chain. Let's go.
You believe he'll do it?
That he'll put the 16 bill in? No.
Yeah.
I don't believe he'll do it.
Yeah, but
I don't think he'll pull the election cord yet, but I think he'll do it and see if he can get along without the bloc.
But, and this is your area of expertise, not mine, surely that buys him a demographic from 65 to 75 years old in an election that he looks like he's going to lose.
I think the 65 to 75-year-old people largely these days are still working. That's number one. I certainly work beyond 74. And I think, I don't know your age, but I think you're going to do the same thing if you haven't already. I think that people of that age group understand that OAS at this point, when people are living to 85 and 90, doesn't make any sense. And I think they're going to realize that if they are given it, they're going to be have it clawed back in taxes. So what's the point?
How much does that mean to that person? I mean, on a weekly or monthly basis, do you know?
10%, I don't know. On a monthly basis, probably $80.
It's not going to, but it could. You know, we've done okay. But for some people, that $80 makes all the difference.
It could. Depends on whether you think those people are poor enough, and apparently they're not. This is all the information that I can get. We can do some more fact checking. I am out of time. I want to say thank you for coming on board.
And you have a good holiday week.
How long are you? Thank you. How long are you there before you return?
It's raining now.
I know.
And it's starting to get, you know, these southern climes are all great until the sun goes away. It's starting to rain, and
your scheduled return is next week.
Yeah, I'll be back in the studio next week.
I'll look forward to that. We have our Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, coming up this week, so that's why Andy's here today. Take care and have a good rest of the vacation.
You have a great week. Thanks, Peter.
All right, bye-bye.
You're with the Sherman Report, daily news commentary, live at 5 p.m. Video version live at X, YouTube, and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
You know, I've never believed in celebrating the death of another human being, but there have to be exceptions to every rule. The news of Hassan Nasrallah's death in an Israeli bombing was meant to cut the head off the snake called Hezbollah. It only emerged after we'd finished our show on Friday, or I'd have mentioned it then, but I'm mentioning it today. Nasrallah was the right guy to be targeting, and taking as many of his senior people along with him as possible was just a bonus. I wish them all a good life in the next world. From material that I've been reading on Twitter over the weekend coming out of Lebanon and Israel, it seems the general feeling is one of genuine relief. It has long been my belief that the Lebanese are basically a good people who, absent outside influences, would be a great neighbor for Israel, have been a great neighbor for Israel, and vice versa. But who could say that? The answer is everyone could say that, but only now. Only now, with Hezbollah out of the way, at least in terms of cutting off the head. Speaking out against Hezbollah and being anywhere near them would have meant certain death, almost certain death. I read many tweets over the weekend from people whose mother tongue is Arabic and who were tweeting from Beirut, from where they were profusely thankful to Israel for freeing them. Here's one of them. To the Western activists and protesters, your voice is not ours, and your words do not carry the weight of our nations. You neither know our struggles nor represent our spirit. The Middle East stands united, grateful to Israel for striking at the heart of Lebanon's Hezbollah. Here's another from closer to home. Thank you, Israel, Iranians told a street party in Toronto as they handed out cake in celebration of Israel eliminating Hezbollah leader Nasrallah in an airstrike. And finally, here's a photo of citizens launching fireworks in Beirut to celebrate Hezbollah's demise. Then there's a photo of huge oil explosions, a video actually, in Yemen, which were retribution for Yemen firing on American warships and into Israel directly. Hi, Yemeni Houthis, how stupid can you be? You saw what Israel did to Hezbollah in Lebanon. You should remain silent. You should play dead. This is generally not the time to fire ballistic missiles on Tel Aviv. This is what you get, you idiot.
والله أقسم بالله إن الحر الكاوي باقي عندنا خلاص انتهى اليمن الله عن دمر إسرائيل أبى الصحة أيوة.
Perhaps supporters of Hezbollah and whatever is left of Hamas over here should take a good look at what's happened over there, draw some conclusions. Israel is really good at what it does militarily. It hates doing it as much as you hate being on the receiving end of it. The best thing would be to wrap your heads around the single most important facts that we'd thought you learned in the last year. First, don't attack Israel. 2, Israel has no wish to employ any military tactics against anyone unless attacked first. And third, Israel is the historic land of the Jews. It is also the land of modern Judaism. It is going to stay that way. This was an interesting published message that came from Jared Kushner. Jared is the son-in-law of President Trump and the prime mover on the Abraham Accords, which, when rolled out, will change the Middle East for a new era of peace amongst all. I'll read just a bit of it. September 27th is the most important day in the Middle East since the Abraham Accords breakthrough. I have spent countless hours studying Hezbollah, and there is not an expert on earth who thought that what Israel has done to decapitate and degrade them was even possible. This is significant because Iran is now fully exposed. The reason why their nuclear facilities have not been destroyed to date, despite weak air defense systems, is because Hezbollah has been a loaded gun pointed at Israel. Iran spent the last 40 years building this capability as its deterrent. President Trump would often say, Iran has never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. The Islamic Republic's regime is much tougher than risking Hamas, Hezbollah, Syrian, and Houthi lives than when risking their own. Their foolish efforts to assassinate President Trump and hack his campaign reek of desperation and are hardening a large coalition against them. Iranian leadership is stuck in the old Middle East, while their neighbors in the GCC are sprinting toward the future by investing in their populations and infrastructure. They are becoming dynamic magnets for talent and investment, while Iran falls further behind. As the Iranian proxies and threats dissipate, regional security and prosperity will rise for Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike. And a special message to Iran from me, from yours truly. I have no inside information, but my gut tells me you're next. Listen and watch as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaks directly to the good people, yes, the good people of Iran.
I speak a lot about the leaders of Iran, yet at this pivotal moment, I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. Every day, their puppets are eliminated. Ask Muhammad Def. Ask Nasrallah. There is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There is nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. Imagine if all the vast money the regime wasted on nuclear weapons and foreign wars were invested in your children's education, in improving your health care, in building your nation's infrastructure, water, sewage, all the other things that you need. Imagine that. But you know one simple thing. Iran's tyrants don't care about your future, but you do. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace. When that day comes, the terror network that the regime built in 5 continents will be bankrupt, dismantled. Iran will thrive as never before. Global investment, massive tourism, brilliant technological innovation based on the tremendous talents that exist inside Iran. Doesn't that sound better than endless poverty, repression, and war? From Qom to Isfahan, from Shiraz to Tabriz, there are tens of millions of good and decent people with thousands of years of history behind them, and a brilliant future ahead of them. Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. The entire world deserves better. I know you don't support the rapists and murderers of Hamas and Hezbollah, but your leaders do. You deserve more. The people of Iran should know Israel stands with you. May we together know a future of prosperity and peace.
President Biden has been speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu today. What do you suppose they're talking about? Well, if I were Netanyahu and needed to finish the job I'd started after my country had been so brutally attacked, it would go something like this at the end. With great respect and humility, Mr. President, go to hell. So that's what Netanyahu had to say directly to the Iranian people. And that's what I would have hoped he'd have to say to President Biden. Some thoughts today from the Sherman Report.
You're with the Sherman Report, daily news commentary, live at 5 p.m. Video version live at X, YouTube, and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
We spoke a little last week about the Bloc Québécois and its plan for getting the Trudeau Liberals to see things the Bloc way and pass a couple of bills for them with the deadline of October 29th, or guess what? All bets are off, and they'll go against the Liberals in a confidence motion. Straight blackmail. That's what it is. But hey, that's what Jagmeet and the NDP did, and they got away with it for 2.5 years, so why not? That being said, one of the two very onerous bills the Bloc wants passed is the extension of a 10% raise to recipients of old age security. Well, the Liberals did that for those over age 75 back in 2022. But the Bloc is saying it wants the same done for those aged 65 to 74. I'm sure all of you 65 to 74-year-olds agree. Cost? $16 billion additional. I wonder where the libs would get it. Dimes to donuts, they'd get it back from you in an additional tax. Or maybe just in inflationary payments. Just print the damn stuff. After all, it's what you usually do before blaming Loblaw or Exxon for inflation. Insiders say one of the few demographic groups that Liberals still seem to be favored by and to favor is the one actually being singled out by the Bloc's idea for this bill. And the Bloc Québécois wants to go ahead with it. Trudeau should save the money, convince himself in the nearest mirror that capitulating would make no difference whatsoever to his electoral efforts, to his electoral results, and then just call the election. 36 days from today would be, what, November 5th? What a coincidence. November 5th is the American election. No snow yet. Good time to get people out of their houses. And Justin, you'll do even worse if you throw another $16 billion out to a group that is, in many cases, still actually out there working. We're all living longer. Besides, because of what you've done so far, we have to. If other parties are all lined up, ready to oppose deficit spending, you're between a rock and a hard place anyway. The problems we have, and I mean the glaring problems we have, are housing, food, health, and all of that adds up to good jobs plus government assistance. In that order, it is not the time to throw $16 billion at a Bloc Québécois project that is not desperately needed while other things are. If you want to spend money to satisfy voters, my free advice to the Liberals and you is to follow that track. And believe me, Justin, it's not my habit to advise the Liberals.
The Sherman Report, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the video version at YouTube, Facebook, and always at petersherman.com. Thanks for listening to the Sherman Report. If you'd like to connect with Peter directly, just go to petersherman.com.